Hi guys, it's Krista from Playing with a Purpose. If you're new here, my name is Krista and I'm a childcare provider for up to 5 children. And on my channel, you'll find tips and tricks, all things related to childcare, shopping hauls, and the odd family vlog. So it's been a long while since I've posted and I've had a really challenging year. And if you're new here, this is not a regular video. Normally I have childcare content, but for those of you who have been following along for a while, I wanted to catch you up on what's been going on. So going back to last year, right around March break, we were about to go on vacation and my dad suddenly got sick and he went to the hospital. Things were really serious at that time and his breathing got really bad and things kind of were scary. But then things turned around and he was able to go back to his nursing home. And at that time, I just felt a giant sense of relief. He spent a total of 2 weeks in the hospital and we were able to visit the whole week since we were supposed to go on vacation, and so we were off anyway. And then the following week when I went back to daycare, I was able to visit him in the evenings, but it felt like a giant load off my shoulders once he went back to the nursing home. He was home for just over a day and we got a call in the middle of the night letting me know that he had passed away in his sleep. And that was so difficult to hear and traumatizing. So you can imagine that that was a really difficult season. I ended up closing my daycare obviously for that week and we made funeral arrangements. My parents have been in a nursing home for 8 years, so it's been a part of my routine to go visit them at least once or twice a week. But when my dad passed away, I felt so sad for my mom being alone and a widow, and so I started seeing her every single day. So as soon as I was finished work at 4:30, I would go to her place and I would spend at least a couple of hours with her. So usually I sat with her during dinner and then we'd spend a little bit of time after dinner, and then sometimes we'd go for a walk and then I'd come home and make my own dinner. So this routine went on right up until our holidays in August. Last year was my first year that I had decided to close for the month of August, and I wanted to be able to have a rest, but also be able to get kind of prepared for the following year and just feel ready to go back in September. When our vacation started, I had a couple of days to get myself ready for vacation, but I had a couple of things I wanted to take care of before I went away, and I got things like my police check and my first aid and CPR and all those kind of things. And so I was getting all those things done and visiting with my mom, and then I arranged other people to visit with my mom while I was away on vacation. And my family and I went on vacation and I ended up breaking my shoulder in 3 spots on the 4th day of our vacation. So of course I was panicked, not sure how I was going to be able to operate my daycare with a broken shoulder. Fortunately for me, I was off for the remainder of August anyways, but quickly I was made aware that this was not going to be a quick healing process. And in fact, it's gonna take up to 18 months for me to have full mobility back. And so this was another challenging season of my life. All of this happened in the States, so I was first seen in the States and then I followed up with an orthopedic surgeon here. And then I had like a 6 to 8 week period where I was just in a sling and I wasn't able to move my arm at all. But then after the 6 to 8 week period, I started seeing a chiropractor and a physiotherapist. Each of those specialists I still see once a week, and I do daily exercises to strengthen my shoulder as well. The first few weeks of seeing those specialists, I wasn't able to lift any weight or anything. It was just range of motion. And then gradually, sometime in November, I was able to start doing some strength training to be able to lift some weight. And so the plan back in September, when I was supposed to originally open, was to go back part-time with my daughter. So the first 2 weeks of September, I was still closed completely. And then I went back 2 days a week with the help of my daughter for the remainder of September. Fortunately for me, 4 of my 5 families were on maternity leave. So that was really a blessing in this whole situation because that would have been so challenging for the parents. So then starting in October, the plan was to open 3 days a week with the help of my daughter. And then the other 2 days were for all of my appointments with the orthopedic surgeon, the chiropractor, and the physiotherapist, and also getting all those exercises in. So during those weeks, I would spend my 2 extra days off anytime I wasn't at appointments with my mom. And then also after work on the days that I was working, I would head over, see my mom, and spend time with her. October 6th, I was spending time with my mom, and I started to notice that she just wasn't herself. And she hadn't been eating properly the last few days, and she seemed a lot more tired than usual. And so I just didn't feel comfortable. And so I asked the home if they could send her out to the hospital to get checked out. So we got to the hospital, we waited all afternoon, all evening, and into the night. And they had run a bunch of tests, and they came back with some not great news. They had found some masses on her liver, and they were continuing to do some tests through the night, and they sent us home and told us to come back in the morning. When we got back to the hospital in the morning, the doctor told us that this was by no means a cancer diagnosis. They had to do more testing, and they said that there was concerning spots on her liver, but that doesn't mean it's cancer, and that they don't know what it is. But there would be a follow-up appointment that we would come to, and they would run a whole bunch of tests and then make a plan for what we were going to do. And so we went home, and that was Thanksgiving weekend. I was really excited because we were going to have Thanksgiving dinner, and I was able to get transportation arranged for my mom. It was always really challenging to get her here because we live kind of in the country and we don't have a lot of services for her, and she is in a wheelchair. So I was able to secure transportation for her, so I was excited about that. But on Thanksgiving Monday, she was not feeling well, and she wasn't well enough to come. And that was kind of stressing me out. And of course, with the information we got from the hospital on that Friday, Saturday, I was starting to worry. But basically, I was told at the hospital to wait for a call, and we would go for that follow-up appointment. So I waited a few days, and I still hadn't heard anything. My mom still wasn't doing well, and so I called, and they said, no, we have her name here. We will call you in a few days, and we'll give you that appointment time. So I waited sort of impatiently, but they ended up calling and saying that her appointment was on October the 24th. October 24th, my daughter is a nurse, and so I asked her to come with me. So my daughter and I went with my mom to this appointment, and we were expecting them to tell us a bunch of tests that she was going to do so that we could further diagnose what was happening with my mom. And instead, we were introduced to a palliative doctor, and my daughter and I were shocked, and the doctor could tell that we were not aware of what was going on. And so she said, I'm sorry, what do you know about your mom's condition? And so I explained that we were told that we were going to come here for some tests and stuff. So then she backed up and she said that the test that they did in Emerge a few weeks prior, they had found the spots on her liver, but they also found spots on her gallbladder, her adrenals. At that point, a panel of doctors had gotten together. They looked at all the tests that they had done in Emerge, and they basically came to the conclusion that there was nothing else it could be other than cancer. And so that's when we found out my mom had cancer in her gallbladder, her liver, her adrenals, and who knows where else. So at that point I asked what was the next steps, and she explained to us that it was a very aggressive form of cancer, and that there wasn't really options other than she could come in for some chemo, but it would make her extremely sick. And I asked what would that give us if we did that, and she said probably a couple of extra days. And so I asked what we were looking at in terms of time, and she told us that we had weeks. And during the appointment, my mom was falling asleep and not hearing all of the information. She wasn't well, and her breathing was a little bit off. And so at that point, the doctor said, I think you need to go to Emerge because she seems like she's struggling. So then we got sent back down to Emerge after hearing all this information. And we ended up spending another whole day in Emerge. Because of the breathing issues that she was experiencing, they wanted to do a CAT scan of her lungs to make sure there was no blood clot. They ended up finding more cancer in her lungs. And so at that point, they let us know that we had just weeks with her left, and we went home and we were all just completely devastated. And at that point, I knew I just had to close my daycare. And the year had already been so insane with the amount of time that I took off from my dad being sick and me breaking my shoulder, and then now my mom being sick. It was just so much to deal with. My daycare families were completely amazing and were so supportive through this whole journey. So at that point, I closed the daycare, and we just decided to make every single day the best we could make it. Every day I would ask my mom what she wanted to do for the day. Did she want to go for a walk? I brought some old scrapbooks for her to look at. My mom absolutely loves cappuccinos, so every day she got multiple cappuccinos. She was quite tired, and as the days progressed, she got more tired, but she really loved her time. We went for lots of family walks. My grandkids, her great grandkids, came almost every single day. My daughter would pack up a big toy box and they would just play at Great Grandma Annie's. And that brought her so much joy. She snuggled with the baby and she loved that time. And then we would spend every evening, we'd have movie night, or we'd sit and watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy with her. And it was really special. My mom also had 12 siblings. One passed away, but she still has her sister-in-law. And it was important for them to be able to spend time with her as well. So we communicated so that she would have a couple of visitors each day. And my aunts were so amazing, and they made meals so that I could spend every single moment with my mom. And my freezer was always full of food, and my family is amazing. November 12th, my mom passed away. It was a busy week having family and making funeral arrangements. The week after, I took a week off and then I went back. During all of this craziness was also the time that I was able to start the strength training for my shoulder. And so partway through that, I was trying to fit in these exercises to get stronger. And so at the very end of November, I went back to work full time. Physically, it went really well and I was able to lift the children no problem, but it has been a lot. And grief is hard. Grief is really difficult, and I can't describe to you the feelings that I feel on a daily basis. There's days where I have zero energy and I just feel totally exhausted. There's days where I cry. I was always a child that felt homesick when I was away from home, and right now I feel like an intense homesick feeling, and it is so lonely to think about not seeing either of my parents again, but I do know that I will. I know that I'm going to see them again, and I know where they are, and that gives me comfort. But grief is hard, and there are days that I feel good, and then there are days where I don't feel good, and I feel exhausted, and I have no energy, and the tears won't stop. And so I just wanted to make this video to let you know that I want to start making content again, but I'm gonna go with how I'm feeling, and so it may not be super consistent at the beginning, and I hope you stick around. Grief is not easy, and you can't really plan how you're gonna feel from one day to the next, but I want to give myself grace, and I want to give myself time to heal, and I plan on making some content moving forward, but it may not be as consistent as it was. I might not have things as consistent at the beginning. It would also be really helpful to hear from you guys what kind of content you'd like to see in 2024. I'm Krista with Playing with a Purpose. I'll see you next time.